So it's something it really bothers me because a lot of doctors, I don't know the statistics, suffer from alcohol abuse, they suffer from depression. Until very recently, in state licensing applications, they would ask you if you've ever been prescribed antidepressants. They would ask you if you've ever struggled or gotten treatment for alcohol use disorder, which, I mean, the reason it bugs me is because when you put those questions in a medical licensing application, it deters people from wanting to get treatment. They don't want to have to answer yes to that. Have you ever been prescribed an antidepressant or a
Yeah.
psychotropic, or have you ever gotten treatment? So they don't do it. They suffer. And I mean, I've seen this with a lot of doctors. They just don't ever get treatment for their depression until it's too late. They don't get treatment for their alcohol use until it's too late. So it's really unfortunate. I mean, doctors are humans too. They suffer from all the, psychological problems that regular people do. So there
Yeah.
has to be like a safety net. It has to be a supportive environment that they can go to for help. Did you ever at any point get that from like your superiors at work or like the medical community as a whole?
Oh, wow, another great question. So at work, going back to work, I never had any problems at work, right? Like in terms
Hmm.
of drinking and doing something dumb because I was intoxicated or hungover. So that at least thankfully never happened.
Good.
Mine was all on the weekends, like, hey, I'm a Friday night, Saturday night, right? That was mainly my problem. Yes, when I got a DUI in New York 10 or years ago or something like that, and that when my work, I reported that to my work. I didn't lie about anything to the medical
Right.
board and to the work. No, there wasn't anything in place, and that's why I agree with you. I wish there was. I wish there was something in place to kind of like help me out or help other. Again, I don't know how much of it would have like fixed me right away, right? Like it took me
Right.
a couple talking to some therapists, counselors, having good friends over the years to finally have that insight and then be motivated. Motivational interviewing, right? We employ that when we're talking to people with substance abuse issues. Like you have to be motivated. It has to come from within that you want to give up, doing drugs or drinking or eating garbage food or whatever it is the addiction is. So
Right.
that has to want to come from within. That took a while. I had a probation officer tell me, "Hey, stop drinking. Why don't you believe in God more?" Those kinds of things, they don't
Uh,
work. They don't work, right?
yeah.
You know that.
This is why a lot of people don't want to go to AA because one of I think the first like pillars of AA is believing in some sort of higher power. And a lot of people take that as God. And a lot of
Yeah.
people don't want to because they don't believe in God. So great point
Well,
there.
yeah, exactly. Look, I'm agnostic, and that's fine. I've been to AA meetings. I have nothing against AA. It works for people that it works for. It works great, and it's the fellowship and the that whole thing, having a sponsor and making you do a moral inventory. But you can do that in other ways. Like I went to Smart Recovery. That's actually what helped me the first 6 months to a year. I went to an outpatient thing. With my monitor for Nevada State, so I do have a monitor in Nevada State that because of the DUI and like that clicked into place. I wish there was something in place. You're right. It's an embarrassment and it's shameful for doctors to admit that they have addiction. There is still that barrier there, or any mental illness. I worked with a psychiatrist who had bipolar disorder, and he was kind of like just fired or let go, and they didn't really want to address, hey, this
Yeah.
person has a hypomanic episode, and maybe we should try to help them or send them somewhere. And then also on top of that, psychiatrist, you're a psychiatrist, so you don't think that you have a problem maybe, or you think you can get control over it yourself. That's a big hurdle too. So it's kind of a double whammy.
How many of your, if you feel comfortable answering this, how many of your 11 arrests were because of a DUI?
Out of the 11, I actually had three. Two were back to back. That was completely dumb. One of them was like right next door to where I lived. I think they just scanned my license plates when I was out, and we're like, "Yeah, let's like pull this guy over." And then the one that finally led to my quitting drinking was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Yeah, 2.5 years
Was
ago
it a
here.
big
And
one? Was it an
you
accident
know,
or just a
I
DUI?
never, it was an accident where I was, I basically like hit a tree, rolled over. I didn't hurt anyone, thankfully.
Good.
Luckily, I
Yeah.
never hurt anyone or injured anyone. Even myself, I've only had like minor like cuts and scrapes, so I'm thankful for that.
Good.
It was really stupid. If I could go back and change anything in time, any one thing, it would be drinking. It's the best thing to come out of it. Honestly, the last couple of years, all the mayhem, the best thing to come out of it was I gave up drinking. Best decision I ever made in my life. I'm with you on
Yeah.
that, and wish I'd made it sooner. But hey, we're still young, and we can still, we got a lot of life
Exactly.
ahead to enjoy
It's never
sober.
too late. Yeah.
No.
Out of the 11 arrests, how many of them were not DUIs but were alcohol related?
Kind of like giving you a brief synopsis of the 11 arrests. One of them was I was driving underage as a 13-year-old in Pakistan. And they
In
arrested me on show
Pakistan,
music
really?
in Pakistan. That doesn't count. Another one was in a Caribbean island for some dumb stuff like smoking some pot. On a weekend. That was in the island of St. Vincent. I spent a weekend in jail there. Alcohol being involved out of the 11, there was no alcohol in 4 or 5. I actually got one arrest for just not having a sober link or intoxilog device in my car, but I actually had it in my car and I'd completed it, but it just wasn't updated, the TMV, so I got arrested for that sober. So I'd say
So
alcohol was probably involved in like easily 5 or 6 out of out of all the arrests. Again, like I said, at one time I got arrested in Arkansas. I was on vacation with my ex. And I was watching a basketball game and got into an argument with someone and then got arrested, for public intoxication. So that was one of them too. So dumb stuff like that, where the cops, half of them, the cops didn't even really want to arrest me, but I like forced their hand by just being an idiot and intoxicated and, disinhibited. So I'm embarrassed about that, obviously, but I'm talking about it now
you
because
live and
I hope
learn, yeah.
it helps. Me talking about it's helping me like process, hey, wow, like I'm glad I'm not living that life anymore, and also maybe help some other physician or resident struggling with addiction. I'm in a sober group with the professional monitoring program here in Nevada State, and it's actually really good. Every week check in, there's lawyers, doctors, pharmacists, judges, even there's a couple judges there, so there is some kind of like a group that's there for professionals to help them. But it's not really well known or well publicized in the medical field. It's kind of something that you don't want to talk about. You brought up a very important thing about alcohol abuse, just using that word, right? Like when we first started the interview and I was like, hey, should I say I'm an alcoholic or do I have an alcohol use issue? Because even just using, those are explosive terms, right? You get denied certain insurances and you get denied certain things if they find out, hey, you have an alcohol problem, right? So I'm with you on that 100%. I think that's very prohibitive. They should make it more confidential where it's like if you reported this for sure is not going to come back to you, but we'd rather in the interest of harm reduction, right? We'd rather you come and be honest and tell us, hey, if you're a doctor, okay, then you might have to do some monitoring thing and we'll make sure we follow up. But, kind of making it still kind of like, not everyone else has to know, but we have someone on your side and we want you to be successful as a physician and you suffer from an illness. Just like diabetes.
Did any of your employers, because I'm going to tell you a little backstory. I had an ex-boyfriend who unfortunately suffered from depression and alcohol abuse. He ended up getting fired from his job, didn't seem to recover, and then he ended up passing away, unfortunately. But he never had the opportunity to be like you, stand here and say, yeah, I made all the mistakes and, I recovered and I'm moving forward. And I wondered, I don't know what exactly were the details of his case. He was fired from his place of employment. So I'm wondering if your employers, any of you decided to terminate you solely because you were struggling. And he lost his medical license. And I did look up the reason he lost his medical license and it said alcohol abuse and untreated depression. It actually said that as a reason for losing his medical license. Did you face something similar or no?
Let me tell you something about these agencies. I don't want to name any names because, I don't want to get anyone in trouble or you or myself. But agencies,
you don't have to,
like when these agencies, these state agencies, they're there to obviously like to protect the public. And when they give you a medical license, like you're a real doctor, you're not some fake and phony and that you've done all the credentials. But I don't know how much they actually care about the individual doctor and their mental health. Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, I remember having this conversation with a psychologist and because I was going through stuff with the medical board. One of the things the medical board had with me, too, is that I didn't report the DUI in time in an appropriate manner. OK, I accept that. I'm not arguing that point. I accept that. But, this guy told me, he's like, yeah, the medical board. Again, this is some guy's opinion, but I've heard this from a few people. And I actually have a couple friends that have worked as investigators for the medical board. So I can tell you from their opinion that the medical board makes it really prohibitive. When I got my DUI 2 years ago here in Nevada, board from another state wanted to piggyback on that and forced me to go to an inpatient rehab and spend $25,000 of my own money to go into an inpatient rehab when I'd already stopped drinking already at that point. It had already been a few months and I was being monitored. I'm like, hey, you want to just talk to my monitor? I check in with him and I blow into a thing like a few times a day. Right?
Yeah.
So
Do you think they just did that to cover themselves? Like they just wanted to say, okay, we made him go into treatment even though you were sober at that point?
Yeah. If I had to pull out 20, you know what they told me? Pull out the money from your retirement, your 401k, because I said, hey, I don't have the money right now. Like I lost my job.
Oh my goodness.
Are
you serious?
My license got suspended. They're like, pull the money out of your 401k. That would make me more depressed and suicidal, right?
That's actually terrible because you're saying you're struggling. You probably lost your job at that point. You are ill. You're ill.
I lost my
right?
I lost my license. Let me tell you, the medical board, they suspended my license. Again, I'm not going to name any medical boards, but they suspended my license based off of, hey, I didn't report this from a few months ago. And because of that, they shut down the clinic. My clinic had 100 plus patients there. A few of them went to the ER because they ended up having like withdrawals from their medications that they were on, that they were legitimately prescribed by me. Does the medical board care about them? No. You know what they told them? They're like, don't you have an NP? Don't you have anyone that can write them a letter? Yeah, if I write them a letter to go somewhere else, you think that's going to help and cover them in the few weeks that they don't have their meds? No, it's not.
Exactly.
And same thing with actual provider. So that's how much they care, I guess, about like the, patients. And then the provider, it's even less so, like they're not looking out for you. No one once said to me, by the way, I don't have health insurance right now. I can't even afford myself.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Oh
like I can't even afford myself. Like,
that
hey,
hurts my heart.
I have to go talk to a psychiatrist. I can't afford it. Like to get my license back and this and that, I had to pay out of pocket a few $100s to, and that was with a discount because the psychiatrist I went and talked to knew that I was a psychiatrist, right? So,
yeah.
But it's prohibitive. It's prohibitive. You're right.